This is a video about graphing images or portraits, and I want to use this one right here as an example. This is a photograph of Pablo Picasso, and the artist himself was very concerned with the idea of proportions, and he was very good at rendering images realistically. And then later in his life, he tried to break some of those rules when he went to Cubism. Anyway, so what we're going to do in this lesson is learn how to do some proportions on the face so we get things correct. So we get some tools to work with when we're making portraits look realistic. Now, Pablo Picasso had pictures like this that he did. Would you say that those facial features are proportionate? No, they're definitely not. So what we want to do in this lesson is try to get to do some things more realistic than that. Now, this is Cubism, and we're not doing Cubism. We're going to do some realism. So when we look at the face, we can look at some general features like the eyes are halfway on the head from top to chin. And halfway between here and the chin is the bottom of the nose. And then halfway again is the mouth. Those are general rules. Also, the corners of the mouth line up with the pupils. And the head, if we look at the head, we should always be able to fit the width of one eye in between your two eyes. And then we should be able to fit an eye on the side and an eye on the other side. The head is 5 eyes wide. Just some proportional things right there for you to think about. But we're also going to graph this photo, so it's already graphed for us, and we're going to do it on a larger piece of paper, but we're going to create more squares, and they're going to be bigger than our original photo. And so we're going to measure those out, but I want to talk about what happens if you don't make these exactly square. What if we redrew these squares and they were all rectangular, or they were maybe diagonal somehow? We messed up with our squares, and then we try to copy the outlines and the lines here onto into each box. So we're going to take each box and we're going to draw it from the landmarks we see here, from the side of the head and the top of the head, some of these wrinkles. We're going to try to make sure we're entering everything that's in the center of each box in the right place. If it's going into boxes that aren't square, it'll stretch it out. So I did an example for you to show you what might happen to his face if I used rectangular boxes and I used these proportions. And there's just an outline of what that would look like. So you can see it stretches his face because these are rectangles, and it stretches it. And the more these boxes are off, the more it warps the face. So we want to try and stay away from that. Although that's a fun exercise, you should try it sometime. And so we can see we have 3 boxes on the side and 4 boxes along the top. This paper happens to be 12 inches long, and so 3 goes into 12 inches 4 times. So we're going to do 4-inch squares, and I would like you to just do a mark at 4 inches and then 8 inches. So every 4 inches. And then we're going to do the same thing along the top and the bottom. Line it up, put a mark at 4, 8, 12, 16. And here also 4, 8, 12, 16. And then the other side. So we have a mark around each side at every 4 inches. And this is where we're going to make sure that it's square. If it's off of square, we'll have some issues with our picture. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a light line here, but I want to talk to you about using a straight edge. I know it's a ruler, but it's also a straight edge. I just say put your pencil right on the mark. If you want this exact, and push your ruler up against that mark, and then go line the other side up, and you're going to draw your line nice and light. If you don't do it light, we're going to have to erase this eventually, and we can't erase it if it's too dark. Put your pencil on the line, push your ruler against it, line up the other side, hold the ruler with your 4 fingers so it doesn't slip while you draw your line. Okay, and so here I've got all these other lines coming down. Push your ruler against your pencil, that really helps. And do your lines as light as you can. If you can get away with drawing them really light, that'll help so much. Now you'll notice that I have a little extra paper on the side. I've got an extra 2 inches here. This paper is not exactly proportionate to this portrait, but I can use these boxes here, these 12 boxes. All right, so before you draw in your grid here, you're going to go through with a red marker, and I would like you to identify the shadows and the highlights. You can see the lights coming from the right, and his face is mostly highlighted on the right. So more shadows on the left. When we shade that, that'll be important. But these lines also show that. There are lines on his face that are evident and some that aren't because they're blending and changing tone. So outline the best you can exactly where those highlights are, like on his nose here. There's some highlights, and some of these highlights are darker than others. But then also, this entire side of his face is pretty light, so we're just going to go into the shadows and outline wherever those gray shadows are, the darkest areas also around his eye. Any shape and contour that is there, I want you to create a shape. Now I haven't finished his hands, but that's okay. Look at his hair. We got patches of hair. Do you think I want to draw every single hair? Well, not right now. We're not going to worry about every single hair. We're just going to outline some light areas and some dark areas and some gray areas. I would be great if you find 3 values, black, gray, and white, and just outline those. And then his ear here, outline those. All these red marks, you'll even see it transfers to the other side of your paper. This is what your drawing will look like when you draw and transfer it to your grid. But we're just going to draw general landmarks to begin with. So here are my boxes. I see his head is in this box, and I'm going to start from the left, and I'm going to say the left side, are there some landmarks here? There's the side of his head right there. Just put a mark there. His top of his head doesn't go to the top of this box, but that's the highest point. The right side goes to here, and his ear will be here too. So I'm just going in each box, and I'm looking at where they belong. His nose goes to about right here, and hit the top of his lip, just right above that. So this will be a bigger image than this, but you need to be careful to just make these landmarks so that you don't get it wrong later. Here's his jaw coming down, and we know it'll go through the box right about here, so you can draw a line there. These are landmarks, and then later you're gonna go fold this paper and just do one box at a time and just say, okay, I'm gonna do some of these details. I'm gonna make his head arch up here. There's the shape of his head. Maybe here's the shape of his hair, that highlight in his hair. I'm not drawing every hair, but I put some lines in there to show kind of where this hair is going. And he does have a few, sticking up there, but that's okay. The top of his eyebrow comes in right here. And then you go to the next box and start matching that up. Start looking at his eyes and the shape of his eyes and where you drew those lines and where those little wrinkles are. This is the idea behind graphing, is that you follow each square and that you lay it out so it's all proportionate and we don't end up with something like this or something like this.